I welcome you all once again to my channel. Today we are going to be making this nightgown, or you can use it as an inner wear. So you are welcome to this tutorial. So let us get into the video. So guys, this line is going to be serving as our shoulder line. Then from this shoulder line, I'll be taking my full length measurement. So I'll go ahead and place my tape. I'm removing 4.5 inches. It's going to be in form of off shoulder. So I'm removing 4.5 inches. That 4.5 inches, I will replace it with a strap that will make it a spaghetti hand. Okay, so I will mark my full length. The full length I'm using is 40 inches, which is 2 inches above my knee length. So and I'll add extra 2 inches for folding allowance. Okay, and I'll go ahead and mark the same 40 inches at the center so that we will have a straight line. Okay, so to mark our vertical measurements, we'll place our tape at that 4.5 inches like we did and cut the full length, and from there we'll be taking our shoulder to the chest line measurements at 9.5 inches. We'll go ahead and take shoulder to the bust point, okay, at 11.5 inches. Also, I'll mark shoulder to the waistline at 18.5 inches. Okay, then shoulder to the hip line at 24.5 inches. Then I'll use my straight ruler to connect these points so that it will be more visible. Okay, just as you can see me doing. Okay, so I'll go ahead and label these lines that we have marked here. Okay, so this is my chest line, then my bust point, the waistline, the hip line, and finally the full length. Okay, so guys, remember that we took 4.5 inches off when we are taking our measurements. So we are going to be needing this 4.5 inches so that we don't forget when you want to cut your strap or bias. Okay, when you cut your strap for hemming the armhole, we are going to remember this 4.5 inches and we are going to add it to the strap. Okay, so I will proceed by marking my shoulder measurements. So the shoulder measurement I'm using is 19 inches. I'll divide it by 2 and I'll mark 9.5 inch at this shoulder line. Okay, then I'll go ahead and mark the same thing at the chest line. Then at this chest line, I will divide my bust circumference by 4, and whatever I get, I will mark it at this chest line. Okay, then you decide on how fitted you want your armhole to be. Okay, if you want it to be very fitted, if you want it to be fitted at this point, then you can leave it at this bust circumference divided by 4. But if you want it to be more free, you can add extra 1 inch or 1.5 inch as you desire at this point. So if you add extra 1.5 inch like I did mine, then you are going to be marking exactly the same inches at your bust point. Yes, because that is where you mark your bust circumference divided by 4 and add your seam allowance. Then go ahead to the waistline and divide your waist circumference by 4. Whatever you get, you mark it here. Then add your seam allowance and ease allowance as well. Okay, then you move over to the hip line, divide your hip circumference by 4. Whatever you get, you mark it here. Add your seam and your ease allowance as well. Okay, so guys, whatever I mark at this hip line, I'm going to be adding extra 1 inch to mark at the full length because I want it to be very free there. But if you want to mark the same thing that you mark at the hip line, you are free to do so. Like if your full length is some few inches below your hip line, you can decide to leave it at the same inches at the hip line. or you can decide to reduce it or add more. So me, I'm adding extra 1 inch to mark at my full length. Okay, and I'll mark the same thing at that 2 inches allowance I gave for my folding. Okay, so next is to mark our neckline. I'll be using 4.5 inches for the neck width, while for the neck depth I will use 6 inches for the front neck depth and 7 inches for the back neck depth. Don't forget we have already taken off 4.5 inches before our shoulder line. So I'll go ahead and join the points for the neck line, both for the front and the back. Don't forget we are cutting the front neckline first before the back neckline. Okay, and I'll also connect my armhole from this 4.5 inches to the chest line like so. Okay,
So we go ahead and connect our circumference measurements. Connect from these points like so. So this is waist to the hip. I use my hip cuff to connect it. So from this hip line, I'll be connecting it back to the hemline with a straight ruler. I'll go ahead and cut from here like so. So I'll first cut the front neckline. So I'll remove the inner one, which will serve as my front. Then I'll go ahead and trim the back one. So guys, I'll use bias to finish the neckline. Turn it in. Do the same thing for both the front and the back. Then I'll measure what I have here. Measure from here to this point. What I have here is about 11.25. So I'll times it by 2. When you times it by 2, I have 22 and half. 22 and half. Then remember we'll remove 4.5 inches as our off shoulder. We'll remove 4.5 inches when we are cutting the neck. Okay, that 4.5 inches, we are going to be multiplying it by 2. 4.5 times 2, we have 9 inches. So I will now add extra 1 inch to it, which will make it 10 inches. So I'll add that 10 inches to the 22.5 inches that we'll have for our armhole. Okay, and that strap I'm going to be cutting it in the form of a bias. Yes, I'm going to be cutting it diagonally.
as we are cutting the strap, we'll make sure we have up to 32.5 inches that we have measured here. Then add extra 2 or 3 inches in case, so that you will not be short of strap while sewing it. Okay,
And that bias will be by 1.5 inch for the width. So 32.5 inches length of bias times 2. Remember we have two armholes. So this plus this. So 32.5 inches here, 32.5 inches here.
I will fold it like so, then use my pressing iron to iron it so that the middle points will be more visible. Okay,
I will then go ahead and mark my 1.5 inches length of my bias. 1.5 inches all through down.
guys, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly do so as we continue. Okay, so I'm making sure the 1.5 inch is connected all through down before I will now go ahead to cut it out. Okay, then I'll measure to be sure that the length is enough for what I want. So I'm cutting 34.5 inches all together. Okay, so I'll cut it open from the center like so. because we need two straps for the two side of our armhole. Okay, so it is the iron that we use that make this area to be more easy to for us to cut. Okay,
So guys, this is the strap we are going to be using to make our spaghetti hand and to hem the armhole. So I'll go ahead and also cut a strap for this neckline. So I'll measure what I have here. I'll measure what I have on the neckline. This is 12 inches. So, and for the front neckline as well. Front neckline is 10.5 inches. So I'll cut an answer for that. So I'll go ahead and measure 1.5 inch. So I'll make sure it's enough for what I want to use it for. So I'll cut it out.
so guys, at this point, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly do so, like and share this video, also comment.
So guys, this is what I will use to hem the front and the back neckline. So I'll go ahead and finish the neckline for the front and the back. Then next I will join the sides. I'll join the side with 1 inch allowance. Remember, half inch. I left 1.5 inch. Half inch for ease. Then 1 inch is for sewing allowance. So I'll use that 1 inch to sew it to the hemline. I'll do the same thing to this side as well. And I'll go ahead and hem the down part before I will now come and use my straps to finish the armhole and the spaghetti hand. Okay. So guys, I'm gonna head to pipe the neckline. I've used my bias to finish up the neckline, both the front and the back neckline. You can see. So go ahead and give it a good press. I also joined the sides, the two sides. I've joined them with my 1 inch allowance, and I've hemmed the down part as well. So next, I'm going to finish the armhole with the bias that we cut earlier. So this is how I'm going to be sewing the bias. I'll move away like 1 inch after the side seam. Then I'll go ahead, I'll get some space here to enable me sew it together when I come back to this point. So I'll use my pin to hold it down. I'll hold it to this neck point. Remember, the front side of the bias will be facing the front of the dress. So I'll pin it up to this point. So when I get to the neck width here, I'll measure. Remember, we added extra 10 inches while we are cutting the bias. That is 4.5 inches of shoulder that we took times 2, which is 9 inches. Then extra 1 inch. That extra 1 inch will take care of the half inch we use to sew the neckline, both the front and the back. Half inch for the front and half inch for the back. So it will take care of this turning, the finishing of this neck area. Okay. So that's why we added that extra 1 inch. So I'll measure out the 10 inches that we added while cutting this bias. So I'll mark 10 inches. Then from this 10 inches, I'll continue with the back side like so. I'll place it here. I'll continue from here to stitch it. I hope you understand. Then I'll continue to stitch it. Then when I get to 1 inch before the seam, I'll stitch it here and stop. Then I'm going to take mark 1 inch where this one will meet here. I'll mark it the same thing with this side. Then I'll go ahead and stitch this bias like so. After stitching it, I'll cut out the excess. Then I'll continue. I'll finish up the remaining part. And I hope you understand what I mean. So guys, I've gone ahead to do that on this side. So the next thing for me to do now, after sewing it like this, I'll go ahead and fold in 1/2 inch like so. Okay, I'll fold in 1/2 inch, then fold again, and I'll then go and top stitch them, top stitch to have my neat finishing. I'll continue to do that. When I get to this place, remember this is our spaghetti hand. So I'm going to fold in this part, fold in this part again, then fold it again, fold it again before I'll then stitch it to have a neat finishing. You understand? I'll fold it in this side 1/2 inch, fold it in this side 1/2 inch again, then I'll fold it again, then I'll stitch it all through here. When I get here, I'll continue with this part like I did the other side. Continue, I'll fold it in and stitch so that we'll have a good finishing. So guys, I'm going to go over to my machine to do that, and I'll come back to show you what I've got.
I'm done sewing it. Look at it. This is the spaghetti hand. So this marks the end of this video. If you find this video useful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, like and share. Okay, thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video. Bye bye.